Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Living in Sync podcast. I'm your host, Joelle Cease, and today I'm talking a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey. And this episode is solely just for sharing my story because in upcoming episodes, I'm going to be bringing on a variety of entrepreneurial moms, women, ladies that are absolutely amazing, that have all different stories of how they got into making money online, starting a side hustle, starting their own business, whatever it may be. And I wanted to have an episode where I'm sharing my story. This is not to sell you anything. This is not to have you join or become a part of something. This is just truly sharing my story because I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota. My parents have worked jobs that they have been at for a really long time. They're very traditional jobs. My dad is a farmer. My mom is a insurance agent / accountant, worked in a bank before that. And so I really just knew those traditional type of jobs. And growing up in a small town, I didn't have a big scope of possibility. But growing up in the age of the internet, and especially in the time frame of which I started as an online entrepreneur, things were crazy and they got crazier, and the world and landscape is even crazier now with the variety of things that you can do as a freelancer or this, that, and the other thing. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but I wanted to have an episode that shared my story. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Living in Sync podcast, where we will talk about the biological blueprint of your cycle and how your hormones impact every area of your life. I'm your host, Joelle, certified nutritionist, mom of 2, fitness coach for over a decade, and I want to help you better understand your cycle to work with your body in achieving your goals. I will teach you how to care for your body in a well-rounded and realistic way that caters to your season of life and feel freaking amazing. In every episode, you will get tips, takeaways, and just feel like this is a heart-to-heart chat with a friend. Let's roll into today's episode. As we dive into things today, I just want you to know there are still going to be health and wellness related episodes. I want to bring on episodes on perimenopause because as I'm turning 35 this year, and I have a lot of friends that are in the 35 to 45 age range. While we still want to be mindful of our cycle is changing. And in perimenopause, it changes like a roller coaster, which is why, after we have kids and we're in the 30s to 40s age range, we notice cycle symptoms way more than we did in our 20s, early 30s, and things of that nature, depending on. So there's still going to be health and wellness related episodes. I wanted to be clear of that. But the Living in Sync podcast is really rolling into a lifestyle podcast. Maybe we'll find another niche again someday, but I still love health and fitness and wellness in a simplistic way because I'm going to have a rant coming up on that very soon. Oh my gosh, I've got so many podcast episode ideas. I still take into consideration my cycle all of the time. For example, I am in late luteal today, you guys. And man, this weekend was the lutealist of luteal times with the passing of my father-in-law. Thank you so much for your outpour of messages and prayers for my husband's family and for my husband. We're rolling and we're grooving, and I really appreciate that. But man, luteal has been lutealing. I mean, I'm all about talking about cycles, so almost all of my friends messaged me and said that this month their cycle was either really late, really off, or what the heck was going on. So we're still going to be talking about all of those things, but let's get into my entrepreneurial journey. As I mentioned, I did not ever imagine myself being an entrepreneur. And, in high school, which is such a weird time to be asking people what do you want to be when you grow up? You have to decide and you have to stick to that planned path. And I was just very determined. When I made that dedication of where I was going to go to college and what I was going to pursue, like that was huge. I was like, I'm not going to change my mind. This is what I'm going to do. So at that time in high school, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a dental hygienist because somebody I really love and admired was a dental hygienist. And then she was the one, I think, actually that told me about a dietitian. And once I was learning what a dietitian was and what they did, I'm like, that is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go to North Dakota State University and I'm going to become a dietitian. And I attended North Dakota State University. And after multiple times of applying to the dietetics program, which was really competitive, really small, I was not a great student at all. Big college lectures were really hard for me. Going from a small town with small classes, very intimate relationships with your teachers and peers to these gigantic classes, like I didn't do well, but also now I see it as it was not my planned path at all. And so instead of repeating another really expensive year at North Dakota State University, I started my business at this time in 2011. I had just turned 21 and it was that fall, and I saw another woman online talking about how she was getting fit and healthy after having a baby, making money from home. I was already a student. I was working at a daycare part-time. I was never a night owl, so taking on a second job usually looked like waitressing or bartending for a college student. I was like, I can't stay up that late. And so when this was something, she was like, you can do this on your computer. I was familiar with multi-level marketing. I didn't know it as that, but I despised going to the Pampered Chef parties, the 31 parties. I always thought it was awkward. I always felt like, Mom, we're going there and you're going to be pressured to get something, right? And now I didn't know that was multi-level marketing, and that is what Team Beachbody was and is now known as Body. And I always loved health and fitness, and I jumped in and I started, I printed off all my materials. I got on my Getting Started Right call. I was attending weekly phone conferences with these gals that were in Wisconsin. So I was like, if these ladies in the Midwest can do it, I can do it. And my mentors were sharing where they were. And one was way ahead of me and the other one was just ahead of me. So it was always just like, well, if she can get to there and she's going to that direction, then I can get to where she is and maybe I can get to that someday. And I have such fond memories and attitude and energy towards my time in the Team Beachbody space as a coach. I learned so much. I made a ton of mistakes and I did a lot of things that I cringe at now, if I'm going to be completely honest. But I was in my 20s, right? Doesn't everybody do things in their 20s where it's like, oh, cringe and this and that? And I absolutely loved it. I was having a lot of fun. I was meeting the best of the best people. My team had such an amazing team culture. I was earning a really, really great income for somebody who is in their 20s. Insert FTC disclaimer here that there is no guaranteed income when you get into something like sales or network marketing or anything like that. That is purely an industry where you work a lot sometimes in the beginning to not see a lot come out the other side, but each person's earning potential is different. Each person's earning potential is different. That's what I meant to say, right? And so, gosh, it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. I got married and we bought the property that our home is on now, and we started to build our home. Well, I got pregnant with our firstborn, and I just felt so grateful because this income still was supporting us, and I was working on bed rest. And then we moved into our new home in 2017, 2018, pregnant with my second. So I had 2 under 2, and it was really late 2018, 2019, where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling off. And I really think I struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety with my first, because before I had kids, I was like, oh, and there's so many moms that are rocking network marketing with like so many kids. And I was like, it's not going to be a struggle for me. This is the perfect business for when you're a mom. And I thought it was going to be, I didn't think motherhood was going to rock my world like it did. And it did. It rocked me to my core from like an identity perspective, from a like, I'm not fully on my timeline anymore. I've had a couple other girlfriends that saw really great success in MLM before having kids. It's really one of those things that's hard to explain unless you've been through it, right? But I really felt this different shift. I was like, I don't want my body to be my business anymore. I really was struggling hormonally and emotionally, and I was feeling like I didn't have the capacity to support my team members because I was taking care of 2 little babies, and our team calls were on Monday night at 8 p.m. And I was like, Monday night at 8 p.m., I am dead dog drained. Like, I can even look back at some of those calls and I'm just like, I was a zombie and I was trying so hard. And there were so many times where I was like, late 2018 into 2021, 2022, like I really just kept being like, I'm going to reignite. And then there'd be certain things that I saw or felt, and then I'd reignite, or family circumstances. Just like I felt like this super tug of war. But I will say, I'm still so passionate about it. I haven't been passionate about like I guess I love XB Bar and Pilates. You guys have heard me talk about that a lot. I really have felt so excited that Andrea Rogers was added on as a body super trainer, because when people are talking to me about wanting to get into those workouts, I'm like, girlfriend, Andrea Rogers is the best. But I just finished week 2 of 3-day split. And you guys, if you are looking for a workout program, I said at the beginning of this, like, this is not to have you join or buy anything, but I'm just saying in real life, I am doing 3-day split, and it is 3-day workouts, strength training. And it's like the best, because you can, especially this time of year, 3 days a week is sustainable to stick to. And then if you want to do 2 days of walking, or if you want to start running, or if you want to do cycle, or if you want to do Pilates, you could set the goal of doing 5 workouts a week. But the 3 are like solid. They're tough. They're a little bit longer in duration, but they're fantastic. I've really enjoyed them. Anyhoozle, I say that to say I still am a body partner. I still have a consistent group that I check in with. What does the future hold with me and body outside of like what's going on right now? I don't know. But also, you're also going to hear me say that about what I'm doing with podcast production. So let's go into talking about that era. So like I said, 2019 through, and I have this in my notes, I have 2019 through 2022 hot mess, because I was trying so many things. I was trying one-on-one coaching. I was trying courses. I was putting Feminine Flow Fitness, which is now inside Patreon. Like, hello guys, $5 a month, and you even have access to that full course. Insane. But I started listening to podcasts, and podcasts has been a part of my journey in all of this, right? I started a podcast when nobody knew about podcasting, because we wanted to put our team calls on it. And then I started a podcast in 2015 called Girl in Charge Radio, and I figured it out all on my own. I stopped that podcast when I went on bed rest with my firstborn, just because like my world was rocked for obvious reasons. But 2019, I was like, I'm going to start a podcast again. And I was so over talking about health and fitness. I was so over it. I wanted a new outlet. So I started a podcast called Intentional Productivity. Who was here for that? Who was here for that era? Where I wanted to talk to moms about being efficient, because as a business owner and a mom and all of the things, I was asked often, how do you do it all? Which now with hindsight, I was like, was I even doing it all very well? I don't know. I was sleepy. I was in a daze. I was trying to do too much. And I wish I could go back in time and be like, girlfriend, sleep. Sleep and walk, and don't worry about so much. Like, that's the advice I would give myself. And then through 2022, just really, really trying to make anything work. Then I fully surrendered, and I was at a space and place of really wanting to shake things up. So fall of 2022, I started to look for jobs. Mind you, I've been an entrepreneur, you guys, since so long. 2013, I would, if I guess, 2000. I got married in maybe 2012. End of 2012, I became a full-time entrepreneur. And where was I at? Oh, job search. I was searching for a job, and I found a job for a local marketing director. And based off of the job description, I was like, well, if I don't know how to do something like that, I'll figure it out. And I went to that job. It was for a marketing position, and I asked the question of, what marketing strategy do you not have in place now that you would like to do? And they said, podcast. And a divine thing happened, because I was really excited to become a part of the team. They seemed to be excited to have me on, but then the job offer came, and it was just something where it's like, no, like, I can't take that. And then still, like, I'm the one who's the main parent. What's it called? Like, lead parent or default parent. And that's what I want. I want to be the default parent. I want to be the one that watches my kids get off the bus. I want to be the one that's here after school. My husband's in a space and place with his career, and I should, maybe I should talk about that. Maybe first let me ask my husband. I'm going to ask my husband if I can incorporate any, I think he'd be okay with it, but I'm going to see what he says about that, because his career pivoted and transitioned a lot from when we met to where he's at now. But he's in a season in his career where he is excelling, and he's devoted, and he's doing amazing. And he supported me in like for all the time that we've been together. And I was, the breadwinner in the career and the traveling and all that I did prior to 2018. He was there, he was cheering me on, and now it's like it's his turn. He's going, and I'm so proud of him. Anyways, so I went to that job interview. They talked about, I started a podcast. I'm like, this is a skill that I can do. And so I just divinely reached out to one of my amazing friends, Andrea Crowder, and threw out this idea. She literally is one of the best people on this planet, and I love hearing her talk. And I was like, to edit her podcast, because I think also in there, and I've mentioned this at some point too, in summer of 2022, I was going on walks all of the time. I was really going on walks to try to find answers, to try to find peace, to try to find clarity, to try to get ideas for something for me to do. And when I was listening to a podcast on a walk, it talked about, like, if you could do something you love and you already are doing and get paid for it, what would it be? And I was like, listening to podcasts. Well, I have the skill of podcast production and editing. I've done it for myself for years and years and years now, and I can refine it. Like, I've got the basics and I can refine it. And so I reached out to my friend, Andrea Crowder. I told a couple of my other close entrepreneurial friends. I got a referral, and I had another friend be like, oh my gosh, I'm wanting to revamp my podcast. So at the time, fall of 2022, I had 3 solid, amazing ladies in the pipeline to give me a chance on their podcast production behind the scenes. And that to me felt manageable. I didn't do this big, like, I'm doing a big business transition pivot. I just started doing that for them, like, behind the scenes, right? And Living in Sync still going on, and all of that. And I still had the membership Feminine Edge Collective going at the time, which is now Patreon. Like, it's cheaper for you guys and easier for me to manage using the Patreon platform. And I did it kind of undercover. And you know what? Quite honestly, I loved 2023. I loved having this little secret project behind the scenes, and started out 2023. I helped Brittany Highboyer of the Her Unlocked podcast launch her podcast. I helped my friend Lauren Francois of the Wealthy Woman podcast rebrand her podcast, and then helped really get consistent content out on Andrea Crowder, the Unruly Entrepreneurs podcast. And Q1 was just me getting my bearings. Q2 was me like refining. Q3, I kind of took a little savory pause, because that's like summertime, right? Like Q3, yeah. So the summertime, I still had my regular clients, and then I kind of was like adding a few more clients via word of mouth at that time in the summer. And I was like, this is it. This is lighting me up. This is everything that I want to do. And I am so appreciative of my clients. And then in the end of 2023, I was doing my dream planning summit that is with Horatio Printing, for my Horatio Printing dream planner that I use every year. And I felt God, Holy Spirit be like, this is your direction. And I kept wanting to see and asking God, like, okay, what do I do with this? How do I scale this? But right now, I just am continuing to take one next right step at a time. I'm just taking one next right step at a time. I try not to let and this is like against kind of, or not against, but it's different than how I built my MLM. Because with my MLM, it was just like, I always had this, I called it a telescope vision and a microscope vision. Right now with podcast production, sometimes I just like put myself in a playful visualization and do like a telescope vision. I try to see to the stars and look far away and just big, right? And I also am paying attention to the microscope vision of like, what's the next right step? Like, what's the next small step that's right in front of me that feels right to take? And that's where I ended 2023, and then 2024 Q1, I've had an amazing roster of clients. They're absolutely amazing and wonderful. I'm also working with a lot of them because with podcasts, they're so easy to consume. And a lot of these ladies create courses, or they have audios that they share to teach their customers, their community things. So we're putting those onto private podcasts, and I like making them feel like a production where there's intro music, and I'm going through and removing ums or pauses or various things like that. And I'm enjoying this so much. Do I have a telescope vision? I would say no, because I don't need it to be concrete. Do I let myself really expand and visualize the telescope vision and playfully be like, I've talked about this before, wouldn't it be fun if, I have a whole episode on wouldn't it be fun if I let myself go there, but I don't need it to go there, because right now where I'm at is I'm working with amazing clients. I'm working the number of hours per week that feel right for me and my family. I'm obviously making more than enough. I'm still able to be the lead parent, home with my kids, an entrepreneur. And I'm in the service space instead of the sales space. And this is what I wanted to talk about, because like I said, I'm going to be bringing on a handful of my side hustle, entrepreneurial, friends from all places onto the podcast. I think we're going to do a guest. We're going to do a guest era on this show. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about, like, there's a sales aspect and there's a service aspect of what you can do online. And I think we see mostly the sales aspect of things. So with MLM, with digital courses, with various things like that, they're in the sales space. And it may seem like that's more passive. I would say it's not. I would say they're similar. I would say they're similar but different, because with the sales of a course, you have to put in marketing and putting more energy into marketing or resources into marketing if you're doing things like funnels, because for a product, you have to get it out there. So let's not even pick a number, because I don't want to talk numbers on here, but let's say something costs XYZ. Okay. So you created a course and it costs XYZ. Well, if you want to make a certain amount each month, right? This is like the business perspective. If you want to make XYZ each month with a digital course, each month you would want to resell that. So say you're like, oh, what if I had 10 people buy this course every month? Well, for some people, sales and marketing is their zone of genius. And I wouldn't say I'm bad at it. I wouldn't say I'm bad at it at all. But right now in this season of my life, it feels really great to be in the service space, specifically in mine with podcast production, because my people, they are paying me month after month. And I try my really, really best to serve well. So the only reason I've had a client back off or back away from podcast production is because she decided to put a pause. Two people have decided to put a pause on their business in general. And it wasn't in relation to my service in particular. And I even reached out and really wanted to hear feedback on how I could be better. And they both were like, it's not you. It's just, I don't want to be recording anymore. And that's okay. That's a-okay. And guess what? Their podcasts still live on. Their podcasts are still probably getting downloads and listens to, and they're not even making podcast episodes anymore. Right. But with my people, I don't have to go sell course over course over course to new people. I can get really intimate and get really specific and in the nitty gritty with a handful of people and month over month. And if one person decides, hey, I am not going to continue my podcast anymore, it's not a huge dip in the business income. And I've been able, praise the Lord, to recoup this. And so here's kind of to end this out where I see myself continuing on with podcast production. I do see myself going the agency route, bringing on people to help me, to bring on more podcasts and podcasters, have an editor to help me. I do have a telescope vision. But right now, I'm not in a rush to get there. Especially this year, because I still only have limited care for my second born. He will go to kindergarten in the fall, so I will readjust from there. And that's where I'm going to leave you all, whether you're a business owner or not. My piece of advice for you is I truly think divine guidance, God's guidance, is not the oh my gosh, this big opportunity, or oh my gosh, it's not high energy. I really, for me, have felt like God's guidance is one right step at a time, and it feels sound and strong, but I may not know the full picture, but it feels right. I may not see how or why or what it's going to work out, but it feels right. And it feels like one next right step. Not oh my gosh, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start that. And I have so many amazing entrepreneurs that I work with and that are my friends that are shooting for the moon right now, and they want to get there as fast as they can. And I love that for them. And that was once me in, 2013 to 2015. I was scale and fast and grow and more and more and more and more, 10x and 50x and all of that. And that's great. I learned so much in that season. I don't regret that season one bit. Like I said, I did some cringe things. I made mistakes. If I could go back in time, I would do things a little bit differently, but that's wisdom, right? That's wisdom. And that's what I'm building podcast production. And I don't even have a name for the business. It was kind of funny in the beginning of 2014, I finally made a post about this is what I'm doing. And so many people were like, congratulations on starting your new business. And I'm like, well, thank you. And also, it's been operating for a year. I don't even really have a name for it. I did LLC, an overarching media name for it. And but like I took messy action. Like most people would be like, oh, I need the name and I need package services and I need this and that before I can start. And I was just like, no, I'm going to take that next right step. And I've given that advice to a handful of my friends that were in the online entrepreneur struggle, where I'm like, you are looking like for the fireworks, you're looking for the sugar high, you're looking for to make it your plan and your way and your strategy. And I'm telling you, it's one next right step, even if it didn't go with your plans, or even if it doesn't feel amazing, crazy, cool, attractive. It feels really good to take one next right step. And then you look back and you're like, oh, I got to here because of this, that, and I didn't know how the puzzle pieces were all going to look like this, but dang, this looks good. This looks good. And I'm looking at my metaphoric puzzle right now of what's starting to come together. And like I said, I still have so much love, appreciation for Team Beachbody and Body and MLM. And I see the power and the benefit of it, especially for there's great things, and not just that one company. There's other companies that may be a better fit. There may be micro influencing opportunities that you want to look to. There may be virtual assistant opportunities you want to look into, a skill that you want to turn into a service and do for people. And I'm going to bring other women on here that took different paths, because your traditional path too is awesome, right? And I just never saw or knew of the possibility until I got into the virtual world of other people's realities and possibilities and different ways of thinking, and oh my gosh, she does what? That's crazy, because that wasn't happening in my small, tiny town. That wasn't the norm. And while not everything on social media is ethical, not everything on social media will work for you just because somebody else is killing it and crushing it and amazing and awesome. For example, I remember in network marketing, there were many people that came into the company that I was in because of sharing about something like a certain amount of income or something like that. And then they were like, oh, I have to help people work out. I have to eat healthier. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of part of the job. And if that's not for them, that's A-okay, but find something else that fits for you. And there's so many endless possibilities out there. And I wanted to share with you my story and my journey, because when I tried to force a plan, make a plan, didn't want to stray from a plan, I found myself stagnant and frustrated and frazzled and trying so hard to make anything and everything work. But then when I looked through the lens of what's that next right step? And it wasn't the flashy things, because in my day-to-day, there are times on social media where I'm like, I should be sharing more about my day-to-day because I'm doing a lot work-wise, but I'm on social media less. And I'm like, but that's because I'm at my computer. Is it even interesting? Is it even interesting to share about? So you guys will have to let me know if you found this episode interesting, if there's anybody you would like for me to bring on to the podcast in this idea of sharing with you the story of other mompreneurs, entrepreneurs, side hustle, women that have built things that maybe they did think they would do entrepreneurship, but I sure didn't. I sure didn't think I was going to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't that girl that was selling lemonade and thinking of ways of how to make money. I babysat, and then I got a job at our local pool that was an hourly amount, and then I worked at a variety of really cool jobs. Like, I had really cool jobs as a teenager and in my early 20s. Like I said, I worked at the daycare in college. That was such a cool job. I still have many people from the daycare, shout out, that I'm friends with and in touch with, and love seeing how, like, over a decade later, their kids are grown, their lives are changed, and it's just cool. So look for the next right step. If you are a hot mess like I was in 2019 to 2022, like, that wasn't a turn of a key real quickly. Like, there was a lot of identity struggle and trial and error and mess and breakdowns, but also joy and passion from 2019 to 2022. Like, that's 3 years, you guys. And we went through the you-know-what during that time. Like, crazy. Trust the process. Look for the next right step that feels sturdy and sound and strong, that feels right to you. That's what's been the sweet spot for me. Not the flashiness, not the sugar high, not the crazy promises, because back in the day, there was no like crazy promises on marketing. Like, I don't think I even knew how much money was possible. It's just I knew it was a little bit more that could buffer my bank account. And I was like, okay, I need that because I was overdrafting all the time. And it was just the next right step. And it felt right to me. I didn't consult a lot of people about that decision of starting with Beachbody. It felt right to me. So I took that next right step. I'm going to end it here because I've been blabbing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please come on over to Instagram and let me know if you did. And I will talk to you in the next one. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you loved what you heard or you want to share your favorite episode topics, please leave a rating and review. This helps the podcast growth and gives people an idea of what the podcast is all about. Something new and exciting that I wanted to share with you before we go is that we now have a Patreon page. This has replaced the Feminine Edge collective community in a cohesive place that is easier for me to manage and cheaper for you. If you are interested in our monthly classes, exclusive day in the life vlogs, Bible studies, community Q&A, and more, go to patreon.com/livingInSync and join for just $5 a month. Check out the show notes for any links or details of things referenced in today's episode, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.